Quick note before we start. I'm aware that until the Declaration of Independence was signed, the American colonists were British subjects. However, it would sound confusing if I said the British forces fought against the British colonists at Lexington, and even though that was what was happening. To make it clear, and to keep Laura happy because she keeps bringing this up.
Because I'm right and you know it.
I'm going to go with Americans to mean the American colonists and later citizens of the United States of America, and British to mean the British Parliament and the British forces that they sent to quash our little rebellion.
Those flags are wrong too.
Hi, I'm Barbara Brimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. If you watched our previous episode, which discussed how Exeter became the capital of New Hampshire during the Revolutionary War, you might be wondering about soldiers from Exeter who served in the war. I mean, it seems like Exeter's role was managerial. We were the people with the clipboards. We had the state congress, the committees of safety, the committee of correspondence, the state treasury. Basically, the whole Rolodex of state government was in Exeter. The rest of the state was bustling with fired up patriotism, and it can really seem like Exeter was more like, what? We gotta figure out where the uniforms are coming from. We did have a lot of soldiers from Exeter, but in the early days of the war, we didn't write the names down. Just after the battles of Lexington and Concord, over 108 men marched out from Exeter, well supplied, to Massachusetts to fortify the Americans in Cambridge. They stayed for weeks, and then most of them either joined up with Massachusetts regiments or headed home. There were a few New Hampshire regiments that lingered. John Stark and James Reed led regiments that fought at Bunker Hill. John Stark is famous for our state motto, "Live free or die." The full quote is actually, "Live free or die. Death is not the worst of evils." He took it from the French Revolution, and it also sounds a bit like "Give me liberty or give me death" from Patrick Henry. It became our state motto in 1945, and in 1970 was put on all our license plates, which are made at the state prison, so think about that message for a minute. Anyway, back to Bunker Hill. John Stark was there, but he didn't say "live free or die" at Bunker Hill. He wrote it in a letter in 1809. The Cass family genealogy states that Jonathan Cass joined up right after Lexington and Concord and served at Bunker Hill with George Washington. It's okay, maybe Jonathan Cass of Exeter was there, but George Washington wasn't. He hadn't arrived in Boston until July. Again, I'm not saying there weren't men from Exeter there, we just don't know their names. The National Park Service roster of New Hampshire soldiers at the Battle of Bunker Hill lists only 2 men from Exeter, Edward and Michael Brown. They served with Massachusetts regiments, not New Hampshire, and there's some question as to whether they were from Exeter originally. We do have 2 great accounts of men who served at Bunker Hill and later lived in Exeter. The first is Jude Hall, a formerly enslaved man from Kensington. We've told his story in another History Minute. Go look it up. The other is a Dr. Amos Winship, who we called the mysterious Dr. Winship in another History Minute. I encourage you to watch that one. What a wild ride it is. One thing that did make it from Exeter to the Battle of Bunker Hill was a store of gunpowder stolen from Fort William and Mary in Newcastle. After a group of Americans raided the fort in December of 1774, the powder was stored in towns throughout the seacoast. Exeter had 39 barrels, and some of these went with the soldiers to Massachusetts as soon as the shooting started in April. It must have still been there in June when the Americans decided to dig in at Breed's Hill in Charleston, something the British took issue with. Somewhere along the line, we got the name wrong. There wasn't much fighting at Bunker Hill. It was at Breed's Hill. The Americans lost, by the way, but the fighting shook up the British Empire. It was at that moment they realized that this might not be as easy as they thought. And it wasn't. For more Revolutionary War updates, hopefully with more information, check our website at www.exeterhistory.org.